What if I told you that the engine that could revolutionize Formula One in 2026 is already among us? What if Aston Martin, with the help of Honda, has built something that not only complies with the rules, but could completely rewrite them? In parallel, the MGU-H, one of the most sophisticated pieces of the current hybrid system, disappears. This unit was capable of capturing thermal energy directly from the turbo, eliminating the delay in power delivery known as turbo lag. Its absence in 2026 represents one of the greatest challenges of this new era. All manufacturers must rethink from scratch how to achieve immediate engine response without that help. This not only affects the efficiency of the car, but also its character on the track. In fact, engineers are already warning that the new engines will feel more aggressive, with more abrupt transitions and cruder behavior that could be reminiscent of bygone eras of motorsport. In this context, Aston Martin and Honda decided not to wait to adapt. They took the initiative. The RA626H is your answer. An engine that has been designed not only to comply with the new rules, but to exploit them to the fullest. While some teams are still adjusting their concepts to adapt to this revolution, Aston Martin and Honda have already crossed that line. It's not just about power. It's about energy management, thermal efficiency integrated with electrical storage, and harnessing every one of the 8.5 megajoules per turn that can now be recovered and used. That figure, until recently unthinkable, can be the difference between leading or being trapped in the pack. The key is to understand that the performance of 2026 cars is not going to be defined solely by fast straights or corners. The main battle will be in the invisible, in the energy recovery algorithms, in the strategic use of batteries, in the power delivery maps. Aston Martin and Honda have chosen to be pioneers on this new chessboard, investing not only in hardware but in an entire digital infrastructure that allows each turn to be interpreted and reacted as if it were unique. And this is just the beginning. Because if 2026 represents a regulatory revolution, the RA626H is its first real weapon, an engine that not only roars but thinks. One of the most critical elements of the new 2026 technical regulation is the elimination of the MGU-H. This decision, although aligned with the objective of simplifying power units and bringing them closer to commercial electric mobility technologies, poses a colossal challenge from an engineering point of view. To understand the magnitude of this decision, we must remember that the MGU-H was one of the technical jewels of modern Formula One. Their ability to convert the heat of the turbo into electrical energy, and at the same time control the speed of the compressor, allowed hybrid engines to maintain a constant, smooth power delivery without gaps or delays. Its disappearance forces manufacturers to once again fight against an enemy that they thought they had overcome: turbo lag. This is the first major challenge that Honda has had to face in the design of the RA626H. Without MGU-H, the engine loses that advanced electronic control over the turbo, meaning boost pressure must be regulated more conventionally. This impacts throttle response, overall thermal efficiency, and the way the engine interacts with the hybrid maps. In the first sound tests, a clear sign of this change has been detected: the return of the famous pops and crackles, small explosions that occur when exhaust gas is released, an indication that ignition delay strategies are being used to keep the turbo charged. Effective solutions, but they increase the thermal and mechanical demands of the propellant. In addition to this limitation imposed by regulation, there is another controversy that has generated intense technical debates: the size and complexity of the new hybrid system. As the power of the MGU-K triples, now capable of delivering 350 kilowatts, the need to manage the heat generated by this system is critical. Honda has had to develop a completely new cooling system to prevent electrical system temperatures from compromising overall performance. This has led to one of the most controversial design decisions of the RA626H, a more aggressive cooling architecture which has required Aston Martin to compromise some of the car's aerodynamic efficiency. This has become a topic of discussion among rival engineers, who are closely observing how Aston Martin has had to widen the air intakes and redesign part of the rear area of the car to accommodate the new elements of the hybrid system. Some experts maintain that this type of design could harm the aerodynamic efficiency of the car, generating greater resistance on the straight line and altering the balance of air flow towards the diffuser. Others, however, argue that this is a logical and necessary decision, which will be the new norm across all teams by 2026. Beyond the thermal challenges, there is also a delicate issue regarding weight. The increase in energy capacity, both recovery and delivery, has made the 2026 batteries larger and heavier. This has forced a redistribution of the car's balance and has required exhaustive work on the exact location of each component of the hybrid system. Every kilo counts, and every centimeter of location can alter the dynamic behavior of the car, especially under braking and in high-speed corners. This is one of the points where Honda has worked with greater secrecy. How they have solved the challenge of internal packaging to maintain dynamic competitiveness without compromising the safety structure or the center of gravity of the car. But not everyone is convinced. In the technical corridors of the FIA, there is talk of possible revisions to the minimum weight regulation, since some manufacturers have warned that it is almost impossible to meet the 2026 technical requirements without exceeding the current limit. Others propose changes in cooling systems to avoid an escalation of solutions that end up penalizing competition. Thus, the RA626H becomes a living example of how each technical decision is also a strategic bet. Honda has chosen to embrace the complexity of the new regulations rather than avoid it. But with every innovation comes a new controversy, and with every technical decision, a consequence that can define the future of the season. In Formula One, names are not simple labels. In many cases, they are statements of identity, of ambition, legacy. And when Honda decided to name its new power unit for 2026 RA626H, it didn't do so out of whim or nostalgia. He did it because he wants the paddock and the world to remember who they are and what they represent. The RA nomenclature has considerable historical weight within Formula One. It was used by Honda from its early days as an engine manufacturer in the 1960s, strongly resurrected in the modern hybrid era until 2021, just before its official retirement. These engines led to victories, pole positions and championships with McLaren Honda in the 80s, and more recently with Red Bull Racing in the turbo hybrid era. When Honda left the category after Max Verstappen's championship in 2021, it did so at the top. And yet, its return has not been as a nostalgic enterprise seeking to revive past glories. On the contrary, he has done it with an attitude of total reinvention. That is why the RA reappears in 2026. Because it is no longer about adapting an existing engine as they did under the RBPTH brand, but rather about building a new one from scratch under a new philosophy, but with the same spirit of technical excellence and national pride that has always defined Honda. The number 626 is no coincidence. It represents the year 2026 and the restart of the numbering under a radically different context. The H suffix for hybrid reaffirms the importance of the electrical component, which now represents half of the unit's power. It's a subtle but clear way of saying that Honda no longer just dominates internal combustion. It now also leads the electric revolution within F1. This renaissance has not been easy. Honda had to completely reorganize its engineering structure at Sakura, hire new talent specializing in high-performance electrical systems, and repurpose its development facilities to respond to new FIA protocols. But the most important thing is that, this time, there is no client team involved. There is no longer a Red Bull that imposes conditions or makes unilateral strategic decisions. Now, with Aston Martin, the approach is different. Honda is part of the project's identity. It's no longer about being the technical partner. It's about being the core of success. This new stage also responds to a deeper need on Honda's part, to demonstrate that its legacy is still alive in a rapidly changing automotive world. In an industry increasingly oriented towards total electrification, where the street car and the track sports car can no longer be separated, Honda seeks to consolidate its technological cutting-edge image. Formula One, even with its limitations, remains the most demanding testing ground on the planet. And Honda wants to lead that evolution from within. But beyond the technical and the symbolic, there is an emotional motivation that cannot be ignored. Honda's failure with McLaren between 2015 and 2017 was an open wound. The mockery, the ruthless headlines, the statements of frustration from Fernando Alonso still resonate. The subsequent success with Red Bull was a partial redemption. But this new stage, with its own name and without intermediaries, represents the opportunity to close the circle. To demonstrate that they not only learned from their mistakes, but that they are ready to lead with a maturity that very few manufacturers achieve in this category. The RA626H is much more than an engine. It's a message. It is the testimony of a brand that refused to die, that returned of its own free will, and that now wants to be remembered not for its past defeats, but for how it reinvented its legacy to conquer the future. Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.